Hi there. Good morning, Lacers. Bonnie Violet here, a queer chaplain, and you are at Lacing Your Narrative with a Spiritual Thread, number 2 of 8. So we're in our second week of this workshop series. I'm going to briefly go over just kind of a brief orientation. Hopefully you've found the first workshop and this is your second. But I'm just going to go through this really briefly for folks who might be new or coming across this for the first time. Also, if you look in the description, you'll be able to find links to previous workshops as well. So again, you're at Lacing Your Narrative with the Spiritual Thread, and this is week 2. Folks are either live streaming with us via Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. Also, you can come across these workshops in our video libraries at Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Patreon. As well as this also is on a podcast. So some folks are following this on a podcast. And the podcast is season 5 of A Queer Chaplain. And it actually it'll have each of the 8 videos for each week, as well as all the daily lives will be uploaded as well. So you can find everything there, again, wherever you listen to podcasts. As a reminder, our intended outcome is to lace your narrative with a spiritual thread throughout your lifetime. So we'll travel throughout your life and see and talk and explore spirituality, something you might have called religion at some point in your time of your life or whatever. We'll explore that, talk about it. Another intended outcome will be to remind you of your resilience, to build and strengthen your faith, cultivate and create hope, and spiritual healing and transformation for those of us who may need that. As a reminder, I am a transgender queer spiritual drag artist and a chaplain. I'm not a therapist or a licensed counselor. I would suggest that through this process that you have some support through it. So if you have a therapist or you have a friend that you could talk to, or a family member that you could share your experience with, I would just encourage that. You can also reach out to me, and I'd be more than willing to talk with you more one-on-one. We'll also have group breakouts, so you can come to be a part of a group that's going through the process as well. All live streams are recorded and are public. So please be aware of that. Hopefully you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, again, I have opportunities for you to speak one-on-one and or for you to come to a Zoom meeting that's more private. So don't feel like you need to participate necessarily during the live streams. So just come as you are and feel comfortable as you do. I welcome any and all forms of spirituality into this space. It's not meant to point you in any one direction or the other. I will speak from my experience, and my experience with certain religions and spirituality is limited and just my own. So I will sometimes speak more about those sorts of things just because I know, but please don't feel like, like if that's not your narrative or not part of your experience, that this workshop isn't for you. Bring what you can to the space and share that as well. I'm sure there will be folks if you don't connect directly with me, that you can connect with them. This is a free workshop series. However, if you would like to support my work, not only this workshop, but other stuff with a queer chaplain, you can feel free to go to Patreon, Venmo, or send a gift of some way. But again, don't feel obligated or that you have to. But I'm more than willing to accept that sort of thing if you are willing. I did want to go ahead, since we're on that, because I haven't really done this very often, but I want to go ahead and thank folks who are my current Patreons: Casey, Mark, Todd, Jonathan, Windy City Humanist, Jeff, and Jeffrey. Thank you so much for your monthly support of my work. It helps me to continue doing what I'm doing. All right. So let's go to the next thing here. So again, the structure will have live workshops. There'll be 8 live stream workshops every Saturday at 9 a.m. from March the 13th through May the 1st. I will also go live every morning at 9 a.m. Except for on Fridays, I will do 10 a.m. Just to kind of do check-ins. So if you have questions, comments, want to connect with me, then that's a great time to do that. I'll be live. Also, the small group will be every Thursday at 5 p.m. Again, the link is in the description for that Zoom room. I'm available for one-on-one. Just direct message me. And also feel free that, this is something that you can kind of just do on your own. So go at your own pace. Let's see. I'm just breezing through these real quick so we can get going. But so what folks are doing in these weeks, in this 8-week workshop series, is they're lacing your narrative with a spiritual thread. And that can be done or created in a number of different forms. You could be writing it, you could be typing it, you could be drawing it, you could be audio recording yourself, you could be video recording yourself, you could be doing photography, you could be creating music, you might even just be meditating and thinking and processing a lot of this stuff throughout the week. Again, the way that you decide to do this it's really up to you, and whatever form kind of speaks to you, in finding a way to express your narrative. Eventually, one of the things that I think is really powerful about our narratives is that we do come to create it, we do come to know it, we do come to understand it by writing it, but I think there's also more power when we can speak it or we can share it. So I also want to create opportunities throughout this process in which you can share what your narrative is, and to begin to put words to it, audible words or some sort of expression, I think can be really, really helpful. It also can be really helpful for folks to receive and hear your experience. It can really help folks come to understand their own experience as well. So there are ways of doing this throughout the 8-week course in ways that feel comfortable and good for you. There hasn't been a lot of sharing so far as from folks outside of me, but I really do want to create space for folks who, if they are feeling like they want to participate and share something, to know that there is space for that. And it might be something that might develop more and more throughout the workshop series once folks get a little bit more comfortable going through the process. All right, so last week we talked about what is your spiritual origin story. So that was kind of like where we're starting in this lifespan, this journey across our life, to see where I'll say God, divinity, the universe, creator, whatever words you use to define or express your understanding of spirituality or religion, knowing that also might have changed over time as well. So we're starting from the beginning. So last week, the focus was, what did you learn about religion while a child? And through each day this week, we met and I shared, again, some processes of how we can reflect on our childhood and find out, I guess, what we were told. Some of us maybe didn't grow up in religion. We didn't grow up with spirituality, but many of us still were impacted by religion in our lives, even if we were non-religious folks. Our families weren't as well. I feel like religion has a huge grasp on just our daily lives, both like politically, socially, all of that. And so we're looking at how did those sorts of things inform us. So who told us that, I guess, what religion was and what religion does for us, and all of that. So our parents, our guardians, our grandparents and elders, aunts and uncles, siblings, friends. We also were told a lot via media and music, television. We learned a lot at school via our teachers, as well as our classmates. And I think some of this, one of the things that I'm realizing is that there might not have been as much, like, I want to say, overt expression and acknowledgement of how religion or how certain practices were impacting my day-to-day life. But in looking back, I can definitely see subconsciously, there were some things, for instance, I never saw or heard about queer people and trans people and gay people. I would even venture to say people of color in church where I grew up. And so I guess in that it was just telling me there were only certain people or certain types of people or only certain ways of being in community for me as a Christian at that time. And again, I think I can say a lot of that had to do with just the way that I saw the world at that time, and maybe not as, but anyway, that's what we were exploring. Okay, and so then we're going to go ahead and start with our next topic for this week. So this week we're going to focus on, when did your understanding of religion change? And for folks, and again, I'm using religion as kind of, again, in my own understanding, I feel like religion is like the beginnings of my understanding of things. And to me, spirituality is something that has grown from that understanding. So when I think of religion, I think of it as like for me, it's like an older way of seeing the spirituality I see now, that does somewhat encase and does include some of my religious teachings, but mostly is kind of built upon, like it's built beyond that. All right, so when did your understanding of religion change? We focused a lot of time last week on our childhood and being a child. And in some degree, I think my understanding of religion changed as I started to not be a child as much. So there were probably hints along the way. I shared once with feeling, I think the first time I noticed or started to see things maybe a little bit differently, but didn't really go too far in it, was when I shared with my being scared and not happy that I thought my parents were going to hell because they didn't have a relationship with God in the way that I thought that I was told that you had to at church, and they hadn't, asked God to be their Lord and Savior and done those sorts of things. And being like, but they're great people. They're kind, they're generous. I don't understand why they wouldn't get to heaven. Again, these were like very like black and white kind of all or nothing sort of statements, which I think is very much kind of the way that you see the world as a younger person. But as life unfolds, I think things become more gray. And in that ambiguity and in the gray, like to me, that's really where like God lies, or spirituality lies, or the wonder and the fullness of life. So I think for a lot of folks, there are certain things that happen that can cause us to begin to see religion differently. So what had happened? For me, again, it started to unravel for me when I was seeing that people I love and people I care about didn't fit into this world. And eventually I began to question whether or not I fit in the world anymore. And for me, it was a very crushing kind of experience, because church was always my safe place. It was always the place that I could go to. And once I got my HIV diagnosis, which most of you know, like that's the thing that kind of like changed everything for me. When I got diagnosed with HIV, that caused me to see the world a lot differently, like really quick. I thought about death and dying. I thought about my sexuality and my sexual orientation, which was something that was barely coming to be seen for myself, let alone being able to talk with anyone else about that was not happening until I was diagnosed with HIV at the age of 20. And at that time, I knew I couldn't go to church. That's where I went for everything. And I felt like the time that I really needed to be held and taken care of, I want to say the most. It kind of felt that way at that time of my life. And it wasn't there anymore. It wasn't there I didn't think that it could hold me. I didn't think that it could handle knowing that I was, at that time, a gay man who was living with HIV. So I left religion altogether. I left church altogether at that point. And I just remember it was such a hard situation for me. Like, it sounds so dramatic. It was dramatic. Like, it really was. I remember ending up at the church at some point, if not like the day of or right around finding out I was HIV positive, and just crying and being a mess. And I feel like I went in there like crying and a mess, and I feel like I didn't even have my shoes on or something. Like, it was so dramatic, and just feeling like I can't be here. They won't let me be here, which was so wild, because at some point I just knew that I wasn't meant to be there anymore. And I was super involved with this church. I was in Phoenix, and I did theater, and it was a huge church. We did, there was hundreds, if not 1,000 or two, maybe, I don't know, there was hundreds at least in the pews every Sunday. And I was involved with kind of the young adults, and it was a bit devastating. I remember at that time in my life, I couldn't figure it out. I felt like God was good with me that time, to be honest with you. I thought God would at least have pity or love me out of forgiveness, or out of like somehow God knew and God was okay. But okay that I was bad, or okay that I was wrong, which was not good. Is theology the word? But at that time, that's how I could see it, is that that God, even my God of that time of my understanding, could at least love me even if I was wrong. Which, I just want to be clear, I don't believe that now, but at that time, that was my understanding. Adam says, coming out changed my faith because I didn't like society's interpretation of the word. I now believe in a higher power. Yeah, I definitely understand that, Adam. And I think that's been true for a lot of us. Higher power is definitely something that kind of opened me up to the idea of even using that word, or thinking of that word, God. I feel like I've come to a point to realize that, I just don't have words a lot of the times for my experience. So that's why you'll often hear me say God, or higher power, or creator, or universe. Some days I feel clearer on my understanding of that than others. And some days, to be honest with you, I just think it's all bullshit. But it all still sometimes is helpful to have it in my life, or to be seeking it. So, but yeah, so I think even at that time, I knew God was good. I just didn't know how God was good with it. And I kind of hoped maybe at some point in time I would come to see it the way that I believed him to see it at that time of my life. Like, I just knew that I just didn't understand, that I didn't have the understanding yet to understand everything. But, that was a time when, I was told just being gay, or just being who I was wrong. And, there were times when I would have wished I could not be, that I could just not be gay. And but I wasn't. I couldn't not. I don't know if I couldn't not be. That just wasn't my truth. And I just want to be clear to say too that I'm grateful. Like I don't see me as being queer as being a bad thing. And I mean, it's a gift. I love who I am, and I love the experiences that I have, and how I, as a queer person, I believe that God created me like this and continues to create me like this. God, the creator, like however way you want to define it. Adam says, I have no interest in going to church to be judged when God is the one with that power. I agree. I think I feel you. I mean, not that I need to agree with you. I'm just saying that I have the same challenges. Sometimes I ask myself why I even want to be in church sometimes. Like, what is it that I get from that? Because I go and I like it. And I don't know if part of it is just because of the nostalgia of it all or what. But I also have like my understanding is so much bigger. And most of the time I just feel like people are the ones who like, they don't get it. They don't get it, I guess. So what had happened? What happened for you all that kind of changed that? And then I think I have some more like things that you can kind of like think about a little bit deeper, like because we're going to be kind of focusing on this for a week. And how did it feel? How did it impact you? How did it inform your life and decisions you were making, things you did and didn't do anymore? How did you respond to it once you found out? Like for me, it was just like, my father, he used to always say that, because my dad was always, I used to kind of say this jokingly, but when I was young, I used to say, my dad, when I reflected on my youth, I would say my dad was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I was Jesus. Not in the sense that I was in, and it was just like that idea. And in that understanding, it was like, I loved my dad, but like he was going to hell because he was sex, drugs, and rock and roll or whatever, which is like total like bad thinking. But I remember just kind of like having that sort of not really mentality, because I would just kind of joke about it. I don't remember where I was going with that comment. I don't remember where I was going with that, but anywho, what changed? What did you do about it? What did you no longer do? What places did it take you to? Just kind of the who, what, where, when, why, and how of it all. Oh, I remember now where I was going with that. My dad also, and why I was brought my dad into it, is my dad always referred to my God or my church as my crutch. And like when he had drugs and alcohol was a part of his life, he referred to that as his crutch. And so I kind of always resented that, and kind of struggled with that as a kid, and kind of felt like it made my understanding of church or God as a crutch as some sort of like not a great thing. I can definitely say that when I got to that point in my life where I felt I actually needed a crutch, because I would say until I was diagnosed with HIV, I'd had a very challenging life. There were a lot more things in life that I wanted than what I had, which I think is true for everyone. But for the most part, I felt very blessed and very kind of charmed, and felt like things were moving for me in a way in which life was just going to get better and better. But once I got HIV, that kind of changed. And I felt like that was the time that maybe I really did need a crutch. And when church couldn't be that crutch for me anymore, that's when drugs and alcohol came into my life in a very conscious way. Like I very much made the decision to start drinking and started using drugs to I felt like I had a reason, finally, if you will, to need to escape, or to need to escape, to help me cope with life. I guess to be my crutch, especially since the crutch that I'd always had was no longer accessible to me. I don't have that same perception of God or religion as a crutch anymore, partially because I think that makes me feel like I'm like broken or sick or not well. And I'm just kind of like thinking out loud with this, but I don't like that sort of function for my relationship with God or religion. I do feel like it helps me, like I bring it with me through my life to get through life better, but it's not like something that I use for a crutch. I don't know. I'm trying to think about how to express that a little bit betterly. Adam says, I didn't like how church made things harder rather than easier. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I have a different experience with spirituality now, where like I actually feel like having some sort of relationship with a higher power, with God, some sort of spiritual life actually makes things a little bit easier for me, in the sense of kind of helps me filter everything through it, which makes it a little less confusing, which I think is what some people do with religion, except for sometimes I feel like it's just a more like a filter that only very little can get through. Whereas I feel like I have a filter that everything can kind of go through. Me and these analogies this morning, definitely in some thought. But yeah, I feel like church does, I would agree, church does make it harder than it needs to be. It has made it harder than it needs to be, in my experience. I don't think that's its intent at all, but I do think that that ends up being a byproduct. I question the intent of it all more and more, to be honest with you, the more I hear about all the not so great things that some people do in the name of Christianity, in the name of God. It's just, it's really sad. Some of the things people believe, I guess, or how it impacts me. I guess I'll put it that way. Adam says, faith is a guide to help us interpret life and believe there is something greater than ourselves. Agreed. I'm going to read that again. Adam says, faith is a guide to help us interpret life and believe there is something greater than ourselves. Yeah. When I feel like, yes, I really hope there is. But I think a big part of my spirituality and my understanding of higher power is, like, even if I just get to like the nuts and bolts of it all, a higher power is me plus anything else. So me plus you, Adam, like that's a higher power. That's me accessing higher power to be in life, right? Like whether it's to be in this moment and to have this conversation in a way that's helpful, and that makes me not feel alone in this particular moment. Like there's somebody listening, there's somebody participating, like that, just that in and of itself in a very practical way is some sort of like higher power concept. And I can get behind a lot of that, like just the math of it all, if you will. Sometimes I have a little bit more of the challenge of the magic, if you will, and the mystical of it all. I'm a wannabe believer in that sort of stuff. I do have moments when I feel like, and I see that things come together in a way that's like, how the heck did that happen? Like I couldn't have formed all these things to come across in that way. Or it's really magical when you can see it happening in other people's lives, when you can see just this random stuff all coming together in a way that is conveying a message of hope and strength in that moment and not being alone. Adam says, I too value the energy between each other. Yeah. Right? There's power in that. And like that, I value that energy between us, and I can't seem to do life without it, but I also can't rely on it always. Let's say I struggle to rely on it always, because there's been so many times in my life when that energy between us, not necessarily you and I, Adam, but that energy between us is not something that I can connect or access or open myself up to, or let myself go of. And that can be a very challenging situation. I don't know if folks have been in that spot where you're doing all the things, you're going out, you're seeing people, you're going to work, you're doing all these sorts of things, and the idea that you're going to be connecting with that energy with each other, and for some reason you're not. And for me, that's kind of where the that which might be outside of all of us, is something to try to like tap into, I guess. I like need you. I can't rely totally on you. And I have to I don't know where I was going with that, but I appreciate this, these prompts this morning, Adam, and you hopping on here with me. So I think that was the last of the prompt for this week. So spend some time this week, thinking about when your understanding changed, and maybe why it changed. And then once it changed, what did it cause you to do differently or experience differently? Like the very clear thing. And you can be very clear. It's just okay, diagnosed with HIV, couldn't go to church anymore, started using drugs. That could be a very clear kind of thing, but also maybe there's a way to kind of look a little bit deeper, and maybe there's something beyond the obvious, if you will, which might be something to kind of explore a little bit. Adam says, faith helps us with our vulnerabilities. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and faith to me is, our faith is built because I've seen it happen over and over and over. Does that make sense? It's been my experience over and over and over. And then I can have faith. And so there's a lot of beliefs and a lot of understandings that I have faith in because I've seen it happen over and over and over and over. And because of that, then like you said, I feel like I can be more vulnerable. I can be more willing to okay, it's been there before, so I'm going to put myself out there in that way. Faith does help us with our vulnerabilities. And I don't know about you all, but sometimes I feel like I've just gotten to a point in my life where I can't not have faith and spirituality and vulnerability. All right, so when did your understanding of religion change? That's what we're going to focus on this week. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Again, check out the links in the descriptions if you want to see previous workshops and dailies. One of the best ways to, I think, follow this workshop series is on YouTube. I have a playlist. It's the main playlist on the page that has all of the videos in chronological order. So I think that would be the easiest place to go and find videos, previous videos, and the videos that are coming. So I would encourage folks to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be going live on that, as well as the videos will live there, and I think a little bit easier way to consume it. However, you will still be able to find it on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, those sorts of things as well. So however way you get connected, I guess. And I'm for realsies, I think, gonna say goodbye this time. Take care and have a really great week. Thanks again, Adam.